I want to say good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening to everyone, and welcome again to another Bible study session of spiritual transformation, getting into spiritual shape, creating a better new you. We've been talking about strengthening the family, and in this day and time, we need to strengthen our families more than ever. As we look at what's going on in our world, we realize that we have children in delinquency. We have homes that are not operating in the way that God would have them operate. We realize that there are problems, deeply seated problems that we have in our families. Now, God instituted the family, and therefore, since God instituted the family, when the family finds itself in crisis, in trauma, in disarray, we have to realize that God is the answer. Here's another thing that I want us to uh consider. All families, from the first family until this family, will have some type of dysfunction. There will be things that will go absolutely awry in families. Even God creating Adam and Eve in the garden, Doc, they still had problems. As a matter of fact, Cain killed Abel. And in the first family, there was a murder that took place. It's not God's design for families to be dysfunctional. We read this morning in Colossians chapter 3, we read where the wives should submit to their husband as unto the Lord. We read that husbands should love their wives and shouldn't treat them bad. We learned that children should obey their parents because this is what God likes. It pleases God. But oftentimes, too many families are described as dysfunctional. Tonight, what I want us to realize is that no matter where you have come from, no matter what your family origin, no matter how your mother or fathers got along, that God does not want you dysfunctional, but you can recover from being born to a dysfunctional family. You're not going to be the first one that have family dysfunction. You're not going to be the last one to have family dysfunction. There will be dysfunction in the family, but to be labeled dysfunctional means that the family characteristic is always in chaos. Some people function in chaos and they think that that's just the way it's supposed to be. But the dynamics of dysfunction are detrimental to a family. And what we endeavor to do during strengthening the family is to stop the dysfunction in family, to set the family in order. Yes, family members are going to disappoint each other. There may be certain issues that come up in a family that cause it to be dysfunctional, but there you can work through it if you believe in God, if you both exercise biblical principles. You can overcome the dysfunction in families. Why? Because many of you that are listening to me right now have come from some dysfunctional families. And I'm not going to say that it has been easy, because it is not easy when you come from dysfunction. It's not easy. When people are cussing each other out all the time, that's dysfunctional. When daddy never comes home because he's cheating at the bar, that's dysfunction. If you got to have a work husband that make you feel secure and better than your spouse, because you can't talk to your husband, but you can talk to this man that you have this emotional tie to, then guess what? That's dysfunction. If you have children that are unruly, doing whatever they want to do, and you're not able to have that child obey, that's a dysfunctional family. And a lot of that carries over, that dysfunctions carries over into our personal relationships and our daily lives. Some of us bring the same stuff. You didn't like your mama, but you married a woman just like her. You didn't like your daddy, but you married a man just like your father. Matter of fact, it seems that you are attracted to that kind of stuff. And no matter what you try to do to make a different choice, you cannot make a different choice. Why? Because you have lived in dysfunction so long. You have lived in dysfunction so long that you choose dysfunction subconsciously and don't even know it. So what we've got to do is identify dysfunction. We got to call it what it is. People being pissed off all the time, upset with each other. I didn't mean to say that word, but it just came out. So y'all gonna have to forgive me for that. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. People are always upset. People are always fussing, cussing, slamming doors, hanging out and don't want to come home. That's dysfunction. And we need to be able to call dysfunction what it is. Overly possessive or fault-finding parents, that's dysfunction. Poor organization, stuff everywhere in the house. Don't even look like nobody stays there. Nobody clean. That's dysfunction. An overly rigid structure that is real legalistic, but is so legalistic that Jesus couldn't even fulfill the requirements that are set down. That's dysfunction. Inconsistent, indecisive parents. That's dysfunction. Emotionally abandoned children that have to look at everybody else for love that they should be getting from their parents. And so what they do, they have a bunch of foster parents, or they get into relationships that are not healthy for them, looking for everything that they should have been receiving in the home. That's dysfunction. Lacking parental respect, dysfunction. So what we need to do is learn how to cultivate our families. We need to learn how to cultivate our families for the now generation, so that the now generation can do something and preserve the generation in the future. I want you to know that there's really no great future if we don't get back to principles of biblical truth in our own families. Our churches will not be able to heal. Our nation will not be able to heal if we do not return the attention we need back to the family. Racism could be wiped out if we taught our families. How do you do mass education? You do it because in families, because everyone has a family that they come from. And what we've got to do is determine, like Joshua did, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We don't care what the next door neighbor is doing. We don't care what the across the street neighbor is doing. We don't care what our uncles or aunties are doing. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And so we need to be taught to deal with dysfunction. We need to be taught how to identify dysfunction. And then we need to be taught how to be functional. Like Brother Sullivan says, retrain the brain, which means Romans 12. I beseech ye therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your most reasonable service. But here's the verse: and do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by what? The renewing of your mind. So then, Dr. Outlaw, the question becomes, what does that look like? It's called the mind of Christ. Let this mind be in you, which was also in what? Christ Jesus. You've got to do it. You got to get your mind stayed on Jesus. You got to get your mind stayed on Jesus. You got to get your mind on biblical principles. You have got to pray. We've got to learn to speak the word into our lives. We've got to do what Job did. I gave us the example that Job interceded for his grown children even when they were not in his house, because they may have sinned against God. They may have done something that they were not supposed to do. And Job stood in the gap. So the onus lies with us parents. The onus for the next generation lies with us grandparents. If we don't get this principle right, if we don't teach our young people how to deal with dysfunction and how to cultivate their families when they leave us, how to get over being angry, how to forgive, how to work through sorrows, how to deal with finances when finances are not right, how to take care of ourselves so that we do not become victim and susceptible to diseases, how we live with people who sometimes can get on our nerves and make us sick. What does an authentic relationship with Christ look like? What does a godly father look like? What does a godly mother look like? What does godly children look like? How should discipline be done? If we don't learn to do these things in a biblical way, the whole entire world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. We've got to break the cycle. We got to stop being defeated. We ought to get tired of hearing little Jimmy said he was going to kill everybody. And so he did it. He came to the school and he shot up everybody. What's going on in that home? We ought to get tired of hearing that. We ought to get tired of hearing 14-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds are getting shot and left on our streets dead because young people 18 to 26 have no regard for human life. Where did they get it from? And I'm so glad I was sitting somewhere and a topic came up and a young man said, man, he don't want me to deal with him because I kill that joker dead. And the grown man said, don't say that. Son, don't say that. He said, don't say that. He says, I don't ever want to hear you say those words again. This is a grown man talking to another adult, but clearly the adult was not thinking like an adult and was saying some stuff that he shouldn't have been saying. He said, I don't ever want to hear you say that. And he says, the reason why I don't want to hear you say I'm going to kill him and I'm going to shoot him dead is because you've never been in a position where to take somebody else's life and you're just talking. Stop putting that in the atmosphere. And you know what? I couldn't say anything. And I said, you're right. You're right. You are absolutely right. We've got to tell our young ladies, no, don't just have a baby because your biological clock is ticking and you want to bring a life into this world outside of the wedding relationship. Help our young men to know that it's all right to wait. We need to quit encouraging our young boys to sow their royal, and they ain't so royal, oats. We've got to tell them when they are right. But then we also have to tell our young people when they are wrong. We have to be more transparent with our families and our children and talk to them. And I know the dysfunction makes some people feel that they function better in a dysfunctional relationship, but no one should have to function. No one should have to acquiesce to make it work like that because they come from a dysfunctional place. But we've got to tell the truth, and we got to shame the devil. And what I mean by that is some of us have great fathers, but you know they had 3 different families. One family on the east side, one family on the west side, one family on the north side. We have some of that dysfunction like that. Then we've got to, you don't have a new uncle. Your child don't have a new uncle every week. It doesn't take too long to realize. And then when you realize it may be too late. And you know what that child says? Because you haven't been authentic and real with them and talked about the mistakes that you've made, talk about the regrets that you have, talk about what God has delivered you from. Because we paint the picture that we have been perfect and they think that they have to be perfect. And when they find out that day, when they get old enough to realize that you have not been the perfect person that you are trying to make them be, they say hypocrite, and they say, you can't tell me nothing, daddy, because you did it. How you gonna tell me to be faithful to my wife and you wasn't faithful to my mama? Mama, how you gonna tell me I need to stick it out with that man and you've been married 5 times? And you don't even know who my daddy is. Until we start to talk about these things and get Christ in our life, then we're going to continue to crumble from the inside out. All that mess that we hold in is going to continue to poison our families, because when it comes out, it doesn't stop coming. I don't want you to feel powerless against what is happening in your family. I don't want you to feel like you are desperate because you need approval, that you need to please people, that you need to fix people. Through the power of Christ, dysfunctional patterns can be broken. And I also want to offer you some hope tonight. The hope that I want to offer you is, although you can't change your past, you can't change the fact that your daddy was a Rolling Stone. You can't change the fact that your grandfather was a drug dealer or a drug addict. You can't change the fact that molestation went on. But you can change your attitude about your past, and you can change the pattern so that you can have a better future. And the only way that we do that is to accept Christ full force and allow Christ to transform us into the persons that we are purposed to be. If you've experienced the pain of family trauma or dysfunction and desire to be made whole, you can be made whole. That's what these lessons are endeavoring to do. That's what we're endeavoring to do. No matter how troubled your family may be, even right now, no matter how turbulent your present is right now, God has plans for your future, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to keep you from evil, to give you a hope, and to give each and every one of us a future. God wants you to have a bright future. He wants dysfunction to change. He wants families to change the world for the better. God promises that if you follow his word, he can transform your life. And so tonight, Dr. Outlaw and myself, we're going to endeavor to talk to you about the 37th chapter of Genesis. We want to show you some things in this 37th chapter of Genesis. This takes us to the history of Jacob. Talks about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then there's a fellow by the name of Joseph. Let's talk about it a little bit as we peruse through chapter 37. Genesis 37. Somebody says, well, what does this have to do with anything? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to read it to us out of the NIV. As we go through, we'll go through the NIV because I want it to be in plain language that you can understand what's going on in the text. All right, let's see if we can do this. See if we can get this up. All right, here we are. 37. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. So here we go. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an ornate robe for him. Y'all know what that is, the coat of many colors. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood up, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. And now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he set him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man said. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Let's peep in on their conversation, y'all, in verse 19, and look at what they said. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him in one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dream." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him in this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So Joseph came to his brothers. They stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him in the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat their meal. They looked up as they sat down to eat their meal and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't here. Where can I turn now?" Then they got Joseph's robe and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe." He recognized it and said, "It's my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put a sackcloth on, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. That's the entire 37th chapter of the book of Genesis. Now, Reverend Outlaw and I, we're going to break this thing down, and we're going to have to really lay this down. This is an example of ultimate dysfunction. Ultimate dysfunction. And we're going to start off by looking at the family tree. Y'all ain't getting this. We got to start by looking at the family tree. See, problems don't just spurt up. Problems just don't jump out of nowhere. Sometimes what you have to do is look at the family and look at where dysfunction comes from. Because dysfunction doesn't just show up. Dysfunction is cultivated. And sometimes what happens in families is that certain characteristics are passed on and on. Papa was a Rolling Stone, the son might be a Rolling Stone, or have some characteristics of being a Rolling Stone, or be the exact opposite. But let me tell you something, the old adage is true. The apple don't fall far from the tree. So there's nothing new under the sun. There's no surprise that Solomon would love women. He found a way to be a big-time player, while David was a small-time player, but they both were players. Where did Solomon get it from? He got it from his mom and daddy. That's why he couldn't commit. Maybe he was afraid to really commit. So he kept going through woman after woman after woman after woman after woman. Plus, it's about that king thing. The more sons and daughters you have, the greater your posterity, the greater your kingdom. And so he figured, I'll take a page out of the king's book, but then I'm going to top it. And when you think about the dysfunction, remember Solomon's brother Absalom. Remember Tamar. Remember all the stuff that went down in David's household. For Solomon to turn out as good as he did, it's a blessing. And so what we've got to do is identify some of these things in our family tree. Some of those things, it does not just refer to eye color, height, weight, health history. You've got to do a spiritual forensics. You need to do a spiritual blood draw. You need to draw the spiritual blood. And sometimes you can see why certain things happen, because this is a habit or a pattern in this family. And if we want our families to be blessed, we've got to call it dysfunction. I don't care that it was grandma. I don't care that it was grandfather. Go back as far as you can and do a genogram. And go back and look at your family history. And as it relates, the stories, the tragedies, the triumphs. Find those things that are strongholds. Ask God to show you those things that will keep your family from being the family that it needed to be. If there are absentee men that are not good fathers, you got to point it out. so that that won't happen again, so that you can talk to God about it. If it's a tendency of not getting married, and it's just a family of just a bunch of single women having children, hey, you want to break that cycle. You want better for yourself. I know families where the grandma never got married, had a bunch of children. She had some daughters. They did the same thing. And then you got granddaughters doing the same thing. Let's break the cycle. Let's break the cycle of divorce. Let's break the cycle of abuse. Just because you were beat, that don't mean beat your children, but it don't mean the opposite. Let them run wild. And so this chapter 37 is just a snapshot of the life of Joseph. But his daddy is Jacob. But Jacob has a past. And Jacob got it from his mama. Jacob knew how to lie because his mama knew how to lie. And that's why Jacob's children know how to lie. So let's look at the family tree. Abraham was called out by God. So Abraham is in the bloodline of Jacob. Abraham then has a son by the name of Isaac, but let's remember there's also a son by the name of Ishmael. Abraham was married to Sarah, but he had an illegitimate baby that shouldn't have happened, but they didn't trust God. So basically what happened was Sarah sends Abraham in to sleep with her handmaid, her servant. Watch this. So Ishmael is born. But Ishmael wasn't a promised son. He shouldn't have even been born. But because Sarah laughed at God, Abraham went along with Sarah. He has a child that's not the promised child, but it sets them up for trouble. Oh, come on. We got to talk about family dynamics. Ishmael is born, and then finally Isaac is born. Sarah gets jealous of Hagar and Ishmael, and although it's Sarah's problem that she created, she tells Abraham, pushes him up to send away his oldest boy. Y'all know how you do. You're married, here come the outside child, and you find out that the outside child is born. And at first you can deal with it. You think you can deal with it, but guess what happens? You get jealous because on Christmas he's buying that child something. On Christmas, he's going over to spend time with the child. At first it was cool when he brought the child home and you spent time with him, but here's the deal. Now that Isaac is born, you feel Isaac got to come first and you're jealous. You don't want Ishmael, the woman, the son by the other woman, to come over with your boy Isaac because this your boy. And so even though this is a blended family, I'm putting this in today's vernacular so that you can understand how dysfunction happens and how dysfunction down the generations can mess us up. And so here goes Hagar. Abraham is told, you got to get rid of that trick. She got to go. I would use other words, but you know the words. Y'all don't want to be called it, but y'all call each other that. Tell that bee to take her and her raggedy son, and they got to go. I don't care where they go, but they can't go with us. And so Abraham adds to the dysfunction. Instead of being a man and being a father, now wait a minute, Sarah, I can't do that to my boy and his mama. He sends her away into the wilderness, into the desert. He leaves them there. Abraham, the father of the faithful. Sarah, the mother, leave them there. And so then now we are experiencing the Arab-Israeli conflict, the Palestinians and the Israelites. Matter of fact, you saw in Genesis 37, Ishmaelites. That's to distinguish between, that shows us that the Ishmaelites come from Ishmael, a great nation. God says, I'm going to make a great nation of him. So you have the Israelites, and then you have the Ishmaelites, the Israelites and the Ishmaelites. All this goes back to Abraham putting Hagar out. They both are sons of Abraham, but from two different mamas. So Abraham got two different baby mamas. And he treating one good, but the other one he mistreated. So that child and their mama, they grow up and they ain't gonna never forget it. And some of the conflict that we are seeing right now today between Hamas and Israel stems from that. So Abraham, then you have Isaac. Isaac is a great guy. But Isaac wants to basically do what's right. He's a patriarch. And so you have Isaac. And what does Isaac do? Well, Isaac gets married because he is the promised son. And he gets married. He gets married. And guess what? When he marries her, then some trouble starts. Isaac marries Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Rebekah's father was Bethuel. But Rebekah's brother was Laban. Rebekah is the granddaughter of Milcah and Nahor, who was the brother of Abraham. So Isaac actually marries his cousin on the daddy's side. All right. So what do? They get married, and then guess what? There are two twins born, Jacob and Esau. What happens? Jacob and Rebekah get together. They deceive Esau, who's the oldest twin, and they steal his birthright, and they trick his daddy and his mama. is pushing him up to do it. And so I don't know what advantage that she would have had to love one son more than the other, but she did. And when you love one child more than the other, and you make distinctions between them, there will be trouble. And if you do have a pick, keep it to yourself. They're setting up this jealousy. They're setting up this battle between their two boys, and it's because of the parents. It's the mama and her mess. And she drags her children into it. I'm telling you how we get to chapter 37. Don't be surprised when we get to 37, because some of you guys said, well, how could these brothers do this to another brother? How could these brothers take little Joseph and throw little Joseph in the cistern? How could they sell him into slavery and then go back and take his coat of many colors and bring it back to his father and say that he was dead, and they all went along with the lie? It's because their great grandparents were messed up. Their grandparents were messed up. And it messed them up. They come from a long line of liars. They're professional liars by now. So don't be surprised when your child lies. Don't be surprised when your children are lying. You know how to tell a good story yourself. Help them to understand why they can't stop lying, and then ask God to come in and intervene. Because you don't want your grandchildren to come up lying, or your great-grandchildren to come up lying. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I ain't getting many amens in this corner, but I know I'm right about it. Go back and do a genogram in your family. Yeah, it's going to be hurtful. Yeah, it hurts to know that we were slaves. Yes, it hurts to know even that we own slaves. Yes, it hurts to know that we were mistreated. Yes, it hurts to know that great-grandmama got cheated on. Yes, it hurts to know that we got another half of our family that we don't even acknowledge. It hurts to know that so-and-so had a drug problem or alcohol problem. It hurts to know that my daddy was abusive and beat my mama. Yeah, it hurt to know. But I want to tell you, the devil hides in dark corners. What is done in darkness, it does come to light. And when you put the light of the word against it, it will not be able to hold you hostage anymore. It hurts to know that my granddaddy was also my father. It hurts to know that. It hurts to know that you were molested by an uncle, or that because my uncle did it, his son did it. We have got to understand this stuff. Y'all talk about generational curses all the time. We'll break the curse. How do we break the curse? Through spiritual warfare, through the tearing down of strongholds. We have so many strongholds in our families, and then we want to know why the church is messed up. The church is messed up is because the people inside of it are so messed up. We can't be a family in church because we haven't learned how to be a family of God in our nuclear family that we were born to. And so then Jacob was a trickster until his name was changed to Israel. Jacob tricked his brother. He was a conniver. And then guess what? Rebekah's brother Laban was a trickster too, but he goes and gets a wife. Tricked him for 14 years. He was only supposed to go for 7 years. because he loved Rachel. But guess what? Laban was a trickster just like his sister. He was a liar just like his sister. He was a deceiver just like his sister. And she's the one that sent him to go get a wife from her brother. Keep it in the family. And they did. He married Leah, but he didn't love Leah. Not like he loved Rachel. And he had children with both of them. Oh. But there's more. Joseph has other wives. Y'all. Let me tell you what he does. He marries the two daughters. Rachel can't have no children because her womb was shut up. So watch this. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun are all Leah's babies. Rachel, the younger sister, is the one that Jacob loved, but she couldn't have any children. And then later on down the line, God blesses them on the end. But then there's a woman named Zilpah. Zilpah is Leah's servant. She has two boys by the name of Gad and Asher. So not only is Jacob sleeping with Leah, but he also sleeps with Zilpah, and then he sleeps with Bilhah, who is Rachel's servant. And he has with Rachel's servant Bilhah, Dan, and Naphtali. And then finally God blesses Rachel, the one he loves, to have Benjamin and Joseph. And Joseph is the one with the coat of many colors. You got 4 different women. One woman done gave him 6 boys. Another one gives him 2 boys. Another one gives him 2 boys. And then Rachel, the one he really loves, gives him 2 boys. Now, if that ain't some dysfunction, I don't know what is. How in the world you gonna have 4 baby mamas and all them cheering and think everybody is gonna get along just because? I wish y'all help me here. One man, 4 women. But guess where he got it from? He got this dysfunction from who? Granddaddy. Granddaddy them. They did it. Abraham had 2 boys by 2 different women, had 2 different baby mamas. 2 different women can't live in the same house, have baby for the same man. So you got one side of the family, your relatives you don't even know, because they wasn't allowed to come around because that was that other woman's. Jacob said, well, at least I could keep mine together. But look at what it caused. It caused problems. The same stuff that showed up in Abraham shows up in the life of Jacob. And it affects Abraham's great-great-grandson. Or great-grandson. You see that? You see how it comes down the line? Oh, it wasn't all the bad traits that he got, but he got some of the good traits. But here, this trait, this thing. Some of y'all say, well, we're going to follow the example. And since they had more than one wife in the Bible, that was cool. We can still do that. It wasn't God's preferred. He gave Adam and Eve each other, told them to be fruitful and multiply. God's plan has already been and always been one man with one woman for life. We introduced as a practice polygamy, likely because of the man's appetite. Instead of subduing his passions, controlling himself, waiting on God. All Abraham had to do was wait on God. And here we see the influence of women again. You got to be godly. If Sarah believed the Lord like Abraham did, she would have never pumped him up to go sleep with Hagar. And we are still seeing the results of that conflict today. Rebecca, if she had been using her influence like she should have, why in the world would a woman want to lie to her husband and bring her son into the mix? Then her son goes and gets caught up with her tricky brother. He tricks him and he marries the two girls. So then he sleeps with the two girls, and then one can't have children. So then he started having sex with the maid of the other one. Then finally, she started having, and then had children with her handmaid. And we all are okay with this. So then we get to chapter 37. Finally, Jacob lived in the land where his father Isaac had stayed in Canaan. We talk about his bloodline, the sons of Bilhah in verse 2, Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now here's where it goes wrong. Israel loves Joseph more than any of his other sons. See, this favoritism in families. Some of us are dysfunctional because we favor one child over another, and when you die, they still gonna be fighting because of what you did in your lifetime. Stop making differences between your children. Mother, stop loving your sons so much more than you love your daughters. You gotta stop that. Daddy hard on the boys, but then hardly say anything to the girls. You got to stop that. You got to keep it on the level. Don't start having favorites. When you start playing favorites, you set up a bad precedent in your family. He loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age. And he makes this role for him. Listen, this is why my grandmama said, if I can't buy shoes for everybody, then nobody get no shoes. Everybody get the same thing. Everybody get the same thing. And you know what? I know some of y'all say, well, no, some children need more than others and blah, 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 blah. I get it. But you've got to make equity be a priority in your home. Why? Because you are going to provoke your children to hate one another. And you wonder why your children don't get along with each other. It's because you had something to do with it. You have your picks and chooses. You can't have your picks and chooses. You got to love them. How do I know? When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated the brother They really should be mad with the daddy. But instead, they hate the brother because the daddy loves the brother more than he loves them. Some of this dysfunction, we cause and we create the chaos. And then we want God to work it out. And so this jealousy, this is what happened to Abraham. Because of Sarah's jealousy, Ishmael and his mama were put out. And they were thrown out, left to die. God had to intervene and say, don't worry about it. I'm going to make a great nation out of him as well. That brings us to chapter 37. Now you can see where the dysfunction comes from. The dysfunction comes way from the beginning of the bloodline. There's been dysfunction. There's been the tendency of polygamous relationships. And ladies, y'all know that don't work. Sister wives, y'all know that don't work. Y'all know that don't work. If you've ever looked at the story Sister Wives, that series, you know that don't work. That polygamous relationship where there's more than one woman, and there are children from all these relationships, that is chaos. That's dysfunction. We got to break those cycles. We got to break those chains. We got to get on this kind of thing. To families, we're going to have to deal with this. Come on, Dr. Outlaw. Talk to us.
Doc, that families are dysfunctional because of the behavior of those that should be governing the family. It is the behavior of the adults that causes the dysfunction in the family. Jacob's father was being dysfunctional about how he treated each one of his children. Instead of it being equitable and fair, it was favoritism shown in the sight of the others, which caused the others to not like their brother. Now, some would say that Jacob did something, but the scripture records that Jacob was obedient to his father. And so sometimes as children misunderstand the behaviors of adults and they take it out on each other when it is the adults that cause the dysfunctionness. Jacob was only being obedient. Jacob did what he was asked. And this Jacob's obedience even showed out how he was obedient to God, even when the wife wanted to be with him, he turned her down. Matter of fact, somewhere in 17, it records what Jacob said to her. We got to understand, even though the children are doing what we are telling them to do, we got to watch our actions to make sure our actions is in line to the one we should be obedient to. If you train up your child wrong, then you train up their child to go the way that they should not go. And a lot of times they don't part from what you train them to do. I remember my grandma used to tell me, don't go down that place and play with them little boys down the street. Them people down there left-handed. She was saying they was left-handed because she knew that the the grandpeople, the grandfather, the grandmother that she was raised up with was left-handed. And the left-handed in those people was transferred into the child's parents. And then now it's in the grandchildren of those people. Ain't nobody down there at that house right. Why I can say ain't nobody down there? Because it's been generational behavior. See, offsprings can only model what they see. That's why our children are doing the stuff that they're doing in the streets, because they're modeling what they see on TikTok. They're modeling what they see on YouTube. They're modeling what they see down the street, on the other street. They're modeling what they see in school. And the only way that is going to be fixed is we got to change our behaviors and start parenting and modeling right. Every other species that God has created that creep and crawl the earth, it models for their young. If it act like a duck and it sound like a duck, then it's a duck. Elephants teach their young how to be elephants. Lions teach their young how to be lions. Eagles teach their young how to be eagles. Birds teach their young offspring how to be birds, how to bring the worm and feed each other, how to learn how to fly out the nest. It goes through the same thing for humans. The speech that you give in your home is the speech that your child will pick up. And you wonder why the little children on YouTube and TikTok cussing, because they heard somebody else cussing. Oh, we think it's cute. But then when they grow up and start cussing you, it ain't cute. See, Israel loved Joseph. The scriptures say he loved him more than any of his sons. That's wrong all in itself. And I know you got two children, and one from one man and one from the other man. Or you got two baby mamas and two children. As the old people say, children. You love this baby mama more than you love that baby mama. Or you and that baby mama don't get along, so you favor the child that the mother you get along with. What are you modeling to your children when you do that? What are you modeling to your son's mother when you don't have a relationship with the father? You think he's a so-and-so, as y'all would say, and you instill that into the son or into the daughter. Oh, I wish I had some people I know on this call right now tonight, because I'm really going to be talking to them right now. You and the husband didn't work out, but you teaching the children to think ill will of the father because they didn't work out with you. And then when they grow up and they have disagreements, they have disagreements and they model what they saw. And then you wonder, well, y'all could have worked it out. No, they took the approach that you took. See, verse 4 talks about it. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. I need to unpack this to you. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Yeah, I know the old thing, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, that's a lie. Don't believe it. Words do hurt. How do I know? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. the word is important, but it's what word you're speaking. And they hated him. Then it says Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brother, they hated him. See, they hated him not first because of what the father did. So now, anything that Joseph was shown to by God, they could not see because they hated him, so they couldn't see God at work in his life. Look how what the father did to the children messed up their walk as a unit with God. You go to church, but you leave your kids on the couch. But then you come home and talk about how good God is. They don't know how good God is because you ain't taking them to introduce them to him. They don't know that he's real because you hadn't made it manifest to them. The scripture says that we teach them to observe all things that he commanded you. He commanded you to teach them. To teach means to impart skill. But you can't impart skills that you don't have. So that means that you're not teaching. But how do you go get skills? You got to sit down under somebody that can impart the skills to you. Talk plain. That means you got to go to Sunday school. That means you got to go hear the word. You got to go see the word in action in the lives of people that know the word. The word ain't going to just jump into you by osmosis. And it ain't going to diffuse out of you by the process of diffusion. Diffusion needs osmosis in order for it to work. It is a two-way situation. And you're not going to get the word by phagocytosis. It's just not going to engulf you. You got to go engulf it. So when it get in you, it engulfs you. Pendocytosis and phagocytosis. That's how the word works. See, we think the word just supposed to just lay down itself on us. You got to pick it up. That's why it says, this is my Bible. My Bible it is God's holy word. You have to pick it up. I will live it in a crowd or alone. That means that even in the absence of people, I still live the word. In front of people, I still live the word. A lamp unto my feet, a light along my path. When you in dark situations like David stayed obedient. Not David, excuse me, Jacob stayed obedient to the Lord. Even in the dark situation, he stayed obedient. Because he understood. He understood. 37-17. Look what David did. When Joseph arrived, his brothers was not found. But they saw him in a distance, and before he reached them, they plot to kill him. They moved from here, the man answered. I heard them say, let's go. What did Joseph do? He traveled 12 miles to the place rather than turn to his father and tell Jacob his brothers were of their duties. Joseph went after his brothers and found them. That's what 37, the B clause talking about. In 17, he found them. because he obeyed his father, seeking out his brothers miles away in order to honor his father when his father didn't honor him enough by teaching his brothers and them the right thing. See, sometimes parents, your child really trying to honor you, but you do them a dishonor by not honoring the way God taught you to raise them. They trying to be like you, but you ain't being like God asked you to be. So when they turn out bad, I wonder who taught that. I ain't teach that boy that. Yes, you did. You did teach that girl or that boy that. Because you got to honor and obey your father in order for them to obey you. See, Joseph understood that he must do what is pleasing to God regardless of the consequences, regardless of the situation. He did what was right. Even when he was sold, he did what was right. Even though because he was so obedient to his father, it drew sinful attention to him. Sinful attention. And I want y'all to really get this, how sin really was working here. He was being obedient, but the sin was attacking him through his brothers because his father had sinned against God by not raising him properly or showing favoritism. God don't have no favorites when it comes to his people. The scripture says we are his people and the sheep of his pasture. It don't say this sheep is better than the other. It said he has made us and we not ourselves. He loved all of us the same. He loved all of us the same to the point that he sent his only son for us. Look, and when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe. And he was wearing. And they took him and threw him in. 2. Why did they do that? They did that because that's what they were taught. They did. Go ahead, Doc.
Reverend, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just got to tell you that's something right there. Watch this. You said it in the beginning. They were out with the sheep, but where was Joseph? He was back chilling.
Chilling.
Why? Because he was the only one that wasn't working, running around wearing his robe while everybody else was out there with the flock. He wearing his robe. If he was big enough to walk out there to him to check on him, he was big enough to work with him.
Right.
But because he didn't go out there with him and he run around with this robe, listen, everybody else ain't had no robe. He the only one that had a robe. So he's the favorite. He ain't got to work. All of us out here working hard and doing what we supposed to do and da-da-da-da-da. But this joker here, he run around with this coat of many colors on. He ain't got to work. And then he goes and then he tells daddy on us when we mistreating him.
Right.
And daddy don't say nothing.
Right. He go down there, as the children would say, and snitch on them that they wasn't doing their work.
Yeah, they want to beat him up. They want to kill this cat. So, and Joseph does not really do anything to address it. He just lets it go on. Jacob is a part of this because he buying stuff he done gave something to Joseph that he didn't give to everybody else.
Joseph
can't do that kind of stuff, man.
Joseph got on Ralph Lauren and I got on Rainbow.
A Walmart.
Yeah. Joseph got on Air Force Ones and I got on stuff on Marbury's with the star on them.
$15 shoe.
50. I got on Shaq shoes out of Walmart. Talk plain, outlaw. I'm just saying what I'm saying. But peek this, Doc. Peek this. Here it go. Here it go. This is how systemic this really is. In 1741, and we on a small place in South Carolina near Yamasee. It's a dirt road and it's some houses, and the houses are made out of wood, but then the other house it's made out of hardy plank. The house that's made out of hardy plank has multiple rooms and multiple bathrooms, and the house that before the hardy plank house is just wood that's made out of good timber. Caroline lives in the house with me in the house made of timber. But Caroline is then moved to the house that is made out of hardy plank. I'm trying to talk to somebody. Caroline has fine linen on, and I have clothes made out of burlap. Caroline putting clothes on the line with a hanger, but I'm hanging out clothes in a wash tub. Caroline eats off plates, and I eat out of bowls that are carved out of wood. Caroline smells good, but I smell rugged because I'm in the elements all the time. My fingers are punctured because I got thorns in my fingers for working all day. And Caroline is working, but she is not working as hard than me in the sun. So when I see Caroline, I feel some type of way.
House Negro, field Negro.
Yeah, I don't want to go there, but you get the picture. Fast forward to 2023. I live in a subdivision where the average house is $400,000, but you live in an apartment complex that's wreaking havoc from gas. I come to school and I pull up and you walk to school. And these things, it looks from perception that is unfair. And when this type of stuff happens in the lives of children that are siblings, this is what you get. Yeah, he lived with daddy. He lived with mama, and they doing good over there, but we don't have nothing over here. And instead of the parents recognizes that we're not going to have this division between our children. We're going to give both of them equally so that they can feel and understand what it is like. This is what happened. I would have took Joseph's robe off of him too. Look here, man. You ain't going to come around here with that cloak looking that nice because it was multicolors. I ain't never seen that many colors. So we gonna dirty it up. You ain't better than me, man. Who are you?
You gonna jack your brother for his coat, man?
We would have dusted Joseph up. We would have dusted him up real good where I'm from, Reverend.
Man, Daddy brought that coat for Joseph, man. You can't do that.
Look, and we would have said, tell your daddy that.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here. We'd have dusted him up. But they can't see just because of what was caused by daddy. Daddy caused this issue because daddy was not taking into consideration of what he was doing. The strict being mindful, we say be mindful of the rules in the chapter. Secure without delay. That's what we say at the Baptist church when we do our church covenant. Being mindful. We have to be mindful in this, Reverend, and many people are not being mindful because I guess they say they don't know no better. We got to rely on God's guidance, which will help us prepare for the future. And that's what Joseph did. He relied on God's guidance. So God blessed him with the ability to interpret dreams because he relied on God's guidance. Even when his brothers hated on him, he relied on God's guidance. He wanted to do what was pleasing to God. So he was trying to be a good son to his father because he understood that was pleasing to God, and his father missed the boat. Was not doing what was pleasing unto God. But hey, that's powerful, Reverend.
Yeah, it is. Even when his daddy is kind of ticked off because his daddy say, "Now wait a minute, all these dreams you talking about." His brothers knew what it meant.
Yeah.
That he was gonna rule over him. You put all this favor on him. You done gave him a coat of many colors. You done made him. It's just like Jacob and Esau. It's been in their family for a long time. Some people think they more than others. You like Uncle Jacob. You like Uncle Jacob. You don't work outside, Joseph. You just like your daddy. You ain't gonna work. You're a smooth man, you know. And it caused distinction to the point where even Jacob said, "Man, you're gonna rule over me and your mama? How is that gonna be so?" But guess what? There wasn't no intervention. He should have told that boy, "Hey, stop all that bragging and sit yourself down." I wouldn't have made him no coat, no many colors.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it. But he did, and he preferred him. But guess what? Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Out of all that dysfunction, God is still going to use that dysfunction to propel that family forward. That same dysfunction is going to turn around and is going to be dealt with. But that one brother that they did not like is going to be the one that's going to have to save.
Gonna have to save him.
It's the one that God is going to put him in his life to make sure that they make it.
And Reverend, and this is a testament of what God can do in the spite of your family dynamics. Because see, some people have these situations and they never move past it because they let the situation have more control than the faith.
Yeah, because Joseph could have hated them.
Right.
And he could have, when they got hungry and stuff, we ain't got there yet. That's in our next chapter. But he could have really had them killed. He had an opportunity to wipe them out. He had an opportunity to get back at them. Because let me tell you something. Little children grow up to be big grown people.
Yeah.
And grown people do, and now he's gonna be in Egypt, and God gonna bless him. Oh, he takes him through some stuff, but he's gonna bless him. But here's the deal: you can overcome your family dynamics, but it got to stop with somebody. And Joseph says it stops with me.
Yeah, Doc, because he was walking. Joseph got those dreams, and he understood that he got those dreams from the higher power. So he was walking with God in a dysfunctional family. You can still walk with God and be in God in a dysfunctional family, people. This is really what the crux of it is. You can be okay in a dysfunctional family. Joseph forgave those that tried to do him something. He forgave them. Joseph, boy, Joseph's so powerful in this situation. It's clear. But his father lived in the land of his fathers. Doc gave y'all the breakdown. Jacob's generations. But look what happened in the generations of Jacob that now puts Joseph at risk of being in the same situations. Talk plain out loud. Granddaddy went to prison. Daddy went to prison. Uncle went to prison. That don't mean you got to go to prison, because everybody before you went to prison. Talk plain out loud. Mama got pregnant at 16. That don't mean you got to get pregnant at 16. Well, you 34 and your 16 later is your child with the same age, and all of y'all got 16 years apart between y'all because everybody got pregnant at 16. That don't have to be for you. You don't have to be a cusser because your daddy was a cusser or a drinker. You don't have to be that way. Don't have to. That's what this really, you can walk with God in spite of the dysfunction that around you.
Then, Doc, you're right, but here's the other thing. You got to be careful of who you tell your dreams to, because even your family might not even understand what God is up to in your life.
Right.
You have got to be careful who you share it with. You've got to be careful and keep, this social media has messed us up so bad that we want to put God showed me. We want to be prophets and prophetesses and all this other here kind of stuff that they got going on. And we want to post everything on Facebook. When we get $1, we want to post it. When we get a new car, we want to post it. We want to be on Instagram. We want to be on Tumblr. We want to be on TikTok. And we just showing out. You want to do all of that stuff. And then guess what? Then you turn around and then people start coming at you. They say, let's squash that. She thinks she's something. He think he's something. Let's go on and get at. It don't have to be that way.
Reverend, it don't have to be that way. It also the other part about it is that you have the ability to keep your mouth closed. See, if it was a dream for everybody to see, then God would have revealed it to them too.
That's right.
That's why dreams come the way they come. They're not meant for everybody. Everybody ain't supposed to see your dream. Your dream's supposed to manifest itself. Talk plain out loud. It's by how you live out the dream. When Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream," when he penned that speech, we only know what that dream was because he penned it. But we also understand that dream today because of how he lived it. He lived the dream that was given to him, that was only later to be penned so that we can forever remember it. Because see, the dream that God gave him was to manifest into other people. But we had to see him live it in order for us to really accept it the way it is. And some people still missed it because it's written down. He lived it, and he died behind the dream. So the question becomes, are you really willing to die behind the dream that God has shown you? Or are you going to heed the dream like Paul did when he had the dream in the jail, not to go where he was supposed to go, but he went Are you gonna live the dream that Joseph? Are you gonna live it? Because I know some, and what you put in your mind will sometimes cause you to dream. Because see, some of us ain't dreaming what God put in our mind. We dreaming about what we watched last night on TV. We dreaming about what we ate, what we gonna eat. That ain't a godly dream. We call that daydreaming. Montel Jordan had a song say, "I'm dreaming." Y'all know the song, "I'm dreaming." Y'all know that song? That ain't the kind of dream I'm talking about. Are you dreaming about the place that has 12 gates? Them the kind of dreams I want to have. I'm dreaming about when I get over there. I'm dreaming about no more diabetes, no more taking insulin. I'm dreaming like every day is like Sunday. I'm dreaming when it ain't no more COVID. I'm dreaming like that. I'm dreaming where youth will always be in my day. That's the kind of dream I'm trying to have. The question is, will you be there?
That's right.
So y'all dreaming of stuff that ain't real.
A white Christmas. We probably never had that in Colombia for another 100 years. Doc, I tell y'all what, we are in overtime on this lesson tonight. This is good stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come back. We're going to pick up here, but we're going to move forward. This is a great message. And now I don't want to leave you in this, but I do want you to see in the life of Joseph, those things. It doesn't matter how you start out. It's how you end up. And we didn't even talk about the other boys. How could they do their father like that, knowing that it would devastate him to find out that the young brother was dead or had been eaten by a wild animal? They didn't even care that it could kill their dad. They didn't even care. All these guys got together against this one. We got to come back and we're going to have to talk about it. We're going to deal with the dysfunction, and we're going to teach you how to deal with the dysfunction. We're going to teach you how to identify the dysfunction, and then we're going to teach you the solution for the dysfunction, because we want you to be a functional, godly family. That's why we have this emphasis on strengthening the family. Spiritual formation, creating a better new you, strengthening your family. We'll see you on next time. God bless you. And may he cause his face to shine upon you and grant you his peace. Until the next time, we'll holler at you a little bit later. God bless.
Let me hear you say it now.